Today the news crew of the Australian Education Times is at the office of the newly elected Member of Parliament, Rowland. We are always inspired and wonder how and what drives a person to achieve success in the field of politics. It will be very educating to know what it takes to be a successful politician. Congratulations, Mrs. Rowland, for another great win in the federal election.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rowland, can you please tell us how your childhood was like?
My childhood, I had a very happy childhood. I was the youngest of 4, and my eldest brother and my sister were born sort of together, and then my other brother and I were sort of born a bit later. So there was a 10-year gap between the first 2 and the last 2. And so I was the youngest of 4, so I was terribly spoilt. And I enjoyed going to school very much. I enjoyed netball. I enjoyed school holidays and playing cricket in the backyard. And we went away sort of at the entrance or sometimes up the coast, just about every year. And I had a lot of fun when I was your age.
What schools did you attend?
I went to Our Lady of Mercy College, Parramatta for my high school, and I went to St Bernadette's at Layla Park for primary school, and I went to preschool at Layla Park as well.
Did you go to university?
I certainly did. I went to Sydney University, where I studied arts law, and I got an honours degree in my arts component, and for my law component, I got my Bachelor of Laws. And then a few years later, when I was working as a lawyer, I went back to study part-time, and I achieved a Master of Laws from Sydney University as well.
When did you choose to become a politician? Why?
Oh, that is a very hard question, because sometimes I think you don't choose politics, politics chooses you. And a lot of it depends on being in the right place at the right time. But I think I sort of made a decision around about when I was at high school. I was getting very interested in politics and studying about history and the way governments worked over time. And I became very interested in it then, and I got involved in sort of student politics at university. And then when I got a little bit older, I was elected to Blacktown Council, and then I became the member for Greenway.
What step did you take towards becoming a politician?
Ooh, well, there's a lot of different steps you need to take. First, I think you need to make a decision that this is what you want to do, because it is, there's not very many people in Australia's history who've been elected to the Parliament. In all of Australia's history, there's only been about 1,000 or so people who've ever been elected to the federal Parliament. So not many people get to do it. And so I guess one of the first steps I did was make a decision, discussed it with my husband, and made the decision that that's what I wanted to do. I also had to make sure that I had support in the community for that. And then I had to plan a campaign and get elected. And then when I became a Member of Parliament, actually worked really hard as a member, and then had to work really hard to get re-elected. So there's always, it's one of those things in life, you're never quite finished. You're always working on it.
Being a woman and a mother, is it hard to be a politician?
Look, I think it's hard to be a woman and a mother, full stop. I think there's a lot of challenges. And I think that, the one thing I always think about though is, a lot of us are doing it sort of for this generation, I think, of women in Parliament. We are the ones that are in Parliament having babies, and we had careers. I had a very successful career as a lawyer before I went into Parliament. But I think that'll make it easier for you 4 girls. If you ever decide that's what you want to do, then I think it becomes much more normal and not something different and novel.
How do you spend your day at work?
Well, every day is different. Some days I spend out at a lot of functions, one after the other. Some other days I do a lot of media, so I'm often at different TV studios or I'm on the radio. Some days, that will come up soon when you all have your school presentations. Some days I spend all day at different schools. And then some days I get to be here in the office and I have a full day of meeting people. And Even on the weekends are very busy as well, and often at night. So a lot of my time is spent working out how I'm going to organise getting from one place to another, who's picking up Octavia from childcare, who's dropping her off, who's taking her to swimming. Sometimes I even get to do those exciting things myself. But my day is spent really doing those things, but also getting things ready for the next day and getting organised. Just as your mum probably gets your lunches and your lunchbox ready the night before, and all your clothes and things, then I have to make sure I do very similar.
What's your favourite book of all time?
Ooh, of all time. That is a really hard one. Look, I really liked a book called Wuthering Heights. I thought that. Have you read that one yet? It's sort of a bit older. I think you'll probably read it in high school.
It's in the library, but no one ever picks it up.
Well, you should, because it's a very, very good book. But I also really like, rather than just reading novels, I also really liked to read Shakespeare, which you will get to read in a few years. Now, Shakespeare, of course, is not meant to be read, it's meant to be acted. But I really liked reading Julius Caesar. I thought Julius Caesar was so well written, and for something that was written so long ago, it is so relevant to politics throughout all the ages, all the intrigue, all the backgrounding, all of these things. You can actually take Julius Caesar and put it in any modern day situation. And of course, there's good things and good lessons that are in Julius Caesar as well. It's not just about Julius Caesar being killed and then coming back and haunting people. It's about the way that we approach people, and it's also about not being proud. There's some very good lessons in there about being humble, and I think that's one thing that's often lacking from people who are in Parliament, who are politicians, is sometimes they're too proud and they're not humble enough. So I always think of Julius Caesar as a lesson in how to be humble as well.
What is your role in developing the community?
Well, there's many different roles. A lot of them involve community groups approaching me and letting me know what they're doing, and sometimes that can be anything from, say, school communities, parents and friends communities at school, to different cultural groups, so people who come from different countries, have different festivals and so forth. And then there's people who really advocate for different causes, like people who are war veterans, people who are very passionate about certain diseases and raising awareness and getting funding for them. So a lot of my role involves either assisting with awareness of these things, but also going and listening a lot to what people need, and often these people need government funding or extra government help. So a lot of my role is involved in really just staying in touch with people and then knowing that I'm someone that they can approach and hopefully help out.
Do you have any mentors?
Ooh, again, that's a good question. In politics, I haven't really had that many mentors, although I do learn from a lot of different people in an informal sense. There's a lot of my colleagues who I like to ring up regularly, and I spend time with when I'm in Canberra, even people from different states. I tended to have very good mentors in the private sector when I was working as a lawyer. It was much more structured. I particularly had a wonderful a person who was a partner at Gilbert and Tobin, and she mentored me very well for a couple of years, and we still stay in touch. So I tend not to do things too formally anymore, but I do tend to call on a lot of people, even people who are younger than me. Often you think that a mentor should be someone who's older than you and has got a lot more experience. I tend to get mentored by a range of different people, but I also try to offer that mentoring to younger people who are at school, who are interested in not only politics but also in law and different policy areas that I'm interested in, like education. So yeah, so I think it's very much a two-way street.
What advice would you like to give to our viewers?
Advice. Well, I tend to try not to give advice. I tend to give a point of view and let people judge whether that's good advice. But if I was going to give advice to you young people here for a start, and any young people who might be watching, I would say nothing beats hard work. Nothing beats making sure that you are as prepared as you can be, because you know what it's like. It's very hard to study for a test the night before, isn't it? And it's also wasting a lot of good effort that you've probably put in during the year. So inch by inch, everything is a cinch, I think. So even if you need to break things down into little bits, it's breaking them down into little bits that actually make them more manageable during your day. So I even try to adopt that during the day. If I can take care of small things rather than just think, oh, I've got so many big things to do. If you take care of the small things, then the big things end up taking care of themselves. So being organised and being prepared, and believe me, it took me a long time to learn those lessons of being organised and prepared. When I first started at university, I was not a good organiser. I was not very good at being prepared and putting dates in my diary for when things were due. And I found myself being up all night doing studying for exams or doing assignments the night before. And that just cheats everyone. That's not a good use of your time or of your very many talents. So I would certainly recommend that every bit of preparation you do, so an hour of preparation is worth 3 hours elsewhere. That's what I really believe. So being organised and being someone who's prepared to do the hard work beforehand, and then by the time you go into your exam, you'll be feeling very happy about your exams or whatever else you end up doing in life.
Thank you so much, Miss Rowland, for sharing an insight of your personality, being curious your education, and your valuable advice to us.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming in on your school holidays as well. So it was lovely to see you.